is Our Healthy Homes. OurHealthyHomes.com is the big website that you have to go to. That's where you find all the information. That's where you find out how to change your life and have a... We've got Jake LaFerrier has gone on the show. We're going to talk to Jake in just a minute about Firefighters for Healing. Firefightersforhealing.org is the website that you can go to. Wonderful organization. Works with Joy Collaborative and others to bring healing to... I'm going to let him. I'm not going to steal his thunder. But, all right, Jake, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so I want to just start. We got about 2 minutes left of the segment here. I just want to start with a little bit of your background, what you do for a living, and then how you got involved with Firefighters for Healing.
Yeah, so what I used to do in my former line of work is I was a Minneapolis firefighter for just shy of 15 years, a second generation one.
Wow.
So I started riding fire trucks, the big red truck, with my dad at age 3.
Mm-hmm.
I used to drive the back of the trailer of the ladder truck. It's called a Tillerman.
Okay.
So I used to drive that with my dad at 3. Used to slide the poles, throw water on people, and eat candy.
Oh, wonderful.
I fell in love early.
Yes, of course you did.
Took me many years to
bright
fulfill
lights,
that.
bright trucks, and nice uniforms and sirens.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And it didn't get much better than that.
That's right.
And basically, it took me many, many years to fulfill that childhood dream. I did in 2001. And ironically enough, I started at the same fire station I used to be that 3-year-old at. 28th and Blaisdell.
That's amazing.
Station 8. They call it Crazy Eights. It was a very active station in South Minneapolis, and it still is. Ended up on Engine 8 there, and I spent a lot of time serving the city of Minneapolis. 80% of what we do, our bread and butter, is going out the door on medicals. So we, go in car accidents, heart, difficulty breathing, ODs, gunshots, and then the other, 20% are fire-related runs that will come in, but not all of them are confirmed fires.
When did that change? Because when I was a kid, a friend of mine, his dad was a fireman, and they washed the trucks.
Yeah.
That's what they did. And they drive around and then they do their drills. I mean, seriously.
Well, you were in Winona. There probably wasn't a lot happening.
They were firemen.
Yeah.
And they fought fires. And if there's no fires, then they trained and maintained.
I mean, we do still a lot of that. But basically, there was, in the early 70s, they had a lot of fires. As building construction got better and improved, fire alarm systems improved and stuff like that. In the 80s, late 80s, 90s, you started seeing less fires. Mm-hmm. And then we figured out, we got to figure out what we're going to do to, serve the public and earn our paychecks, essentially. So a lot of that kind of evolved over time. And then, building materials kind of changed and stuff like that. So more carcinogens, they weren't burning just wood, those kind of things.
Okay. So we're coming back right after the break here. We're with Jake LaFerrier. Jake LaFerrier. Firefightersforhealing.org. Firefightersforhealing.org. We'll find out what that organization is all about when we come back. We're in the studio. We're speaking with Jake LaFerrier, and we are talking about Firefighters for Healing. So, Jake, just tell us a little bit. We know that you came up now. You were a firefighter. You're in for 15 years. What made you leave?
So, really, a fire made me leave.
Oh.
So, what happened was July 3rd, 2010, I was on Station 11 on a specialized company called Rescue 9. So we have 2 rescue units in the city, and what rescue units do are basically dispatched when you have some really bad things, like a bridge collapse or IDS people, window washers getting stuck. We have all the tools and the training, and then they'll dispatch us and we'll go out. So July 3rd, 2010 was a Saturday, a beautiful Saturday, and I was heading into work over at Station 11, southeast Minneapolis, over by Bras off 6th Street. So we arrived, pretty much normal day as usual, just a beautiful day. Saturdays, we kind of come in, get our coffee, and we heckle the other shift a little bit before we kind of get out to our Saturday routine. So Saturday's routine basically is rig day. So we'll go out, wash the rigs.
Okay.
Make sure all the tools got gas in there, make sure all the, everything's looking good. So if we catch a run, we're ready to go. So pretty much a standard Saturday as usual. We're out and about doing our rig stuff, washing the rigs. And then being that we're working for 24 hours, we need to go out and get lunch and dinner, and we spend a lot of time together. So at noon, right about before noon, we were going to go out and get our groceries up at the quarry over northeast. So we're going out to go up there and do our shopping at the Rainbow. Then it was a Rainbow. And we're in the store just doing our thing, and we catch a run. Comes through on the radio. It's a smoke in the building run. So pretty much a standard call that we get, a bread and butter call if there is such a thing. So
right.
This time we didn't actually cash out at the cashier. So we ran out to the rig, hopped on the rig, and then we responded code 3. So lights and sirens. We weren't far at all from the address that came in, the box number. So we arrived. Engine 11 is the one with the hoses. So they're a part of our station 11. They pulled in first to size up the building, we call it. So size up is the first incident commander or captain will look at the building and kind of give a report of what they see. What type of structure, 3-story, we got fire, we got smoke showing. So basically we got a report coming. We got a 3-story house at this point, smoke is showing. We arrived right after engine 11. So their goal is just to lay the hose line and flake that out and get ready to go in and fight the fire when we find it. So when we hopped off the rig, Rescue 9, my captain and me, our primary focus at this point was to what we call do a search and rescue. So we were going into this house to make sure everybody was out of the house. So we were going to go to the 3rd floor. So going up, my captain and myself, we were going to don my mask. And we go up to the 3rd floor, and really no fire at this time. Poor visibility. We got up to the 3rd floor where we kind of, my captain went one wall and I went the other, and we kind of met halfway. Searching this room, and we found nobody, and at this point we just radioed for engine 11, hey, we don't have anybody on our search, but the fire is up here, we can hear it crackling in the knee wall. So bring your hose line up here. We'll at this point, put the wet stuff on the red stuff, put the water on the fire, no big deal.
Right.
We'll go back and have some lunch. So we're waiting, can hear the guys kind of clogging up the stairs with the hose line, and as soon as it kind of started coming into the room, I used my axe to chop into the wall. And what happened was the fire was at a smoldering, it was starving for oxygen, it was smoldering. It was an electrical fire. It was like in the movie in the back in the days with Kurt Russell. What happened was when it got that huge induction of oxygen, the house picked up and blew up like off foundation.
Wow.
And literally were an inferno. So it was, floor to ceiling and wall to wall fire.
Wow.
I was blowing 11 feet one way, kind of gained composure, and then our crew with the water, the hose line, actually with the backdraft, all the fire blew them down the stairs. So we didn't have any water, and the hose line was kind of spinning around. And at this point, I ran for beam of sunlight I seen actually coming through the sun. The sun was coming through into my eyes. Ran out it was on the 3rd floor. I broke the window out. I yelled for a ladder, and that was in company, and then I just jumped. I was on fire. Got badly burned. Through my mask, through everything. And really, by the grace of God, I'm here because what happened is I jumped, and there was a porch overhang in the house that saved my life, really, or I would have died on impact.
Broke the fall.
What time of the year was this?
July 3rd.
Okay.
So
hot.
It was really hot, and at this point, so my captain was in there. He was in their side.
And you're on fire.
I'm on fire. No, he's on fire. So the engine company down the stairs were kind of gaining composure at this point. They got the hose line. They were able to come up the stairs and knock the fire down, pull my captain out, and then at this point, I actually was able to get up off this porch overhang, and I didn't know how bad it was at first. Started walking down to the ambulance, and then people could not look at me. They were just turning their head. So I knew it was really bad at this point. So I got down to the ambulance. I was in so much pain. My hands, were just burning up, and I looked down, and, I had skin just falling off. And they put me in the ambulance. They got me on some pain management, which didn't work, and then they whisked me down to Hennepin Healthcare's hospital to the stab room, where I was admitted to having 3rd and 4th degree burns through my hands, 2nd degree through my body, and I broke a limb. And so basically, this was the start of my journey. I spent just shy of 6 weeks in the burn unit undergoing skin graft surgeries. They take the skin where on my body wasn't burned, and they use it for all the burned areas. Right. And it was really horrible. They when you start to have, when they skin graft, what they do is when your wounds start to heal, they debride them all the time. So they'd come in there and do dressing changes and debride your wounds. And it was the worst kind of pain I ever felt, and I didn't really want to live anymore.
Raw nerve.
All nerve. And I was just there, and you had your whole day to think about these dressing changes. So it was really the worst time of my life, and I didn't know how I was going to get through this, honestly. I didn't think I would survive it. I knew likely my career as a firefighter, like my dad would be over, and I was really just struggling. And really the change of course of all this really was 2 little angels that came into my life. So I was in this one room, and one day they gurneyed in two little boys that were badly burned. And And really how this went down was they were living in a tent. A 3 and a 5-year-old living in a tent because their family fell in hard times.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3-year-old actually picked up a lighter and do what 3-year-olds do and playing with the lighter. Next thing you know, their tent's on fire.
No.
The older brother actually went and saved his younger brother. But in the midst of all this, they both were badly burned and disfigured on their faces, their upper extremities. So when I got to look in at those 2 little boys, like a light bulb went on, and the light bulb basically, and the perspective I gained at that point was like, they got it way worse than you. Way worse. So you know what? Quit crying. Pick yourself up. You know, if they can get through it, you can get through it. So I started fighting every single day, 5 minutes at a time, then it became a day, right? And, you know, etc. It just kept building a momentum. And in the midst of all this, I'm kind of getting to where all this really was born was in the midst of all this, the community, there was news, you know, things that were already going out. So the community rallied through a big fundraiser for us down at 7 Sushi. And after we were discharged, we were there and they raised a bunch of money, and I was still thinking about those 2 little boys.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now, did they stay in the room with you for any length of time?
They
or?
were in the room next to me, and they were there for 6 months.
Okay.
Wow.
So
So you were there 6 weeks. They were there 6 months. What about your partner?
So he was in the other room next to me.
How long was?
He was in there, you know, for pretty much similar to what I was, maybe a little
Okay.
less. He had bilateral arm burns
Okay.
through stuff. But anyway, through all this, I guess the community rallied. Everybody rallied. They raised a bunch of money, and at that point, I kept thinking about those 2 little boys.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we got to do something for them. So we took $5,000 of our money, and then started. You know, we sent it over to Region's Burn Unit to send a bunch of kids out to Colorado to go to a burn camp. So
Oh.
really, that's when Firefighters Feeling was really born and birthed was in 2010. You know, in August of that, and then obviously it's more.
So this is your baby? Firefighters for Healing is your baby?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what's that mean? Send them out to a burn camp. What's a burn camp?
Yeah, so burn camp at that time was burn camp really will bring in kids that have a lot of disfigurements, as you can kind of see my hands.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind these kids have disfigurements all over their face, so they, you know, their scarring is really difficult. So they get bullied at school.
Sure.
They're being singled
They're
out.
scarred from the inside and the outside.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So what camp does is not only does it's a community and a camaraderie and a healing mechanism, and it brings kids like them together in a judgment-free zone with a bunch of love that's pushing everything and all the activities forward. They can go there and get the skill sets and modalities that they need to have learned long-term recovery and to build these communities that there's other people like them.
That's it.
And they're not singled out. And
Yep.
they're no different than anybody else other than they're probably more resilient.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of what camp was, and this kind of segues into us. So we started early on with sending kids out to Colorado for camp from our burn unit, Hennepin Healthcare, and then we had since then we had a dream to really have our own burn camp.
So who's we?
We Firefighters for Healing,
Okay.
our organization. So when a couple years into this, after sending kids to Colorado, to Sheila, Colorado, this camp, we thought, gosh, why don't we have our own burn camp? Why don't we do this? So we did that. So basically, it took us many, many years. It's called Camp Rad Realize Every Dream. So it took us many, many years to bring that to fruition. We did that 7 years ago. We have it up in Cross Lake at a place
Oh, wow.
called Camp Knutson.
Okay, this is Our Healthy Homes. It's a compelling story.
It
here.
is. It is. It's
Our
wonderful.
Healthy Homes.
It's wonderful.
Jake LaFerrier. When we come back, I just want to hear about the actual formation of Firefighters for Healing. We kind of heard the backstory of it, but I want to know, like, at what point did you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and then what were the next steps? I mean, how did you get from point A to point B? This is Our Healthy Homes, 651-775-9194. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to the program. This is Our Healthy Homes. OurHealthyHomes.com is the website to go to. We're in a conversation with Jake LaFerrier, compelling conversation on how he formed and started Firefighters for Healing. Firefightersforhealing.org. When we left last time, he was talking about how he sent some kids to a camp in, was it Oregon or?
It was Chile. It was in Colorado.
Colorado.
Yep.
Okay, sent some kids to a camp in Colorado, continued raising money, sending kids to that camp, and then made the decision to start their own camp. But I want to just step back a minute because somewhere in there, the organization Firefighters for
born.
Healing was formed, and I'm just curious about what that thought process was and how you came to believe that should be what you do.
Yeah, I mean, So I'll kind of rewinding the clock a little bit and kind of brushing off a little bit of the dust. So, you know, at the time I had a lot of trauma going on. I was, just
Sure,
I was
absolutely.
out and about.
How could you not?
Yeah, I was learning how to use my hands again. I was having to step away from a job that I really loved doing. I went through another loss in my life too, so I had a lot of things going on. So I think I started moving, and really at the end of the day, it was the big guy upstairs just really started moving through me, and I just got moving. And to me, a part of moving was therapy, kind of not letting the idleness of the devil's workshop work through your head. So
Yeah.
I started moving, and I just went down. I incorporated the the 501c3, the nonprofit. I knew that some place intrinsically deep down inside me, I wanted to do this. So I went and filed the papers years ago with the state to kind of get our EIN number and, to incorporate this. And then it just seemed to be every step after every step was just natural. So incorporated, then, let's host an event. Kind of naturally, we had this event for us. Well, let's host our next event at the same place. So knocked on the owner of Seven's door and asked him if we could use his space. And then I'll tell you what, Keith, it just kind of like snowballed from there. One thing led to another. And I learned a long time ago through one of my mentors. He just told me, he said, you got to start knocking on doors. So we just started knocking on doors. Our first event was in 2011. We produced it in 4 weeks, and it was me and a co-founder at the time. Her name is Melissa, a really dear friend of mine. It was her and I, and we knocked on doors for 4 weeks and got a bunch of silent auction items, different things, and then we raised $27,000 with our first event. Wow. And then we just kind of kept running from there. The next evolution would be, we started hosting galas. And our first gala we ever hosted was down in 2015 at the Lumber Exchange building. And we had this event, and it was 150 people that showed up. And then at the same time, we had won this national award. It's called on the American Heroes Channel. They had this award, and it was in the name of a hero that died on 9/11. His name was Wells Crowther. So the award was the Man in the Red Bandana Award. So out of the nation, we ended up winning this award. It was right at the same time we had our first gala. It was 2014, and so we got a lot of national publicity. We were blessed to go out to the Boston College Florida State game where they played this game, where they gave you the award in front of 60,000 people live on ESPN, and they presented this award there. So in this same time of this first event, we got a lot of national, not only publicity for the work that we were doing here already, but it drove a lot more hype and momentum into really in those early on times to help us morph into something more. So that gala then led into some other bigger galas, and then flash forward, we just finished our seventh gala. We just finished up on November 5th at the Depot. So in the midst of all this, we put the framework together. We started like with Camper Ed, like that was going to be our first way of kind of giving, and really moving the needle with children and pediatrics and families. So it started there with kids. Now that's kind of growing after 7 years to now we're doing not only a residential children's camp, but a family breakaway camp. So where parents, siblings can go up north and different things, and they can get the time and focus that they need to. We've really
because imagine that when you've got a child or anyone in the house, not just a child, but anyone in the house has been injured like this, it impacts the whole household.
Totally.
Because suddenly the focus of that household is on the care for that child.
Right.
And it does spill over into the siblings, resentments maybe build up and things like that they need help in dealing with.
Totally. And here's the other thing that people don't understand is like the amount of guilt that's associated with a child's burn. If there would have been some gray area, like let's just for an example, there was a tea kettle on the stove, right? Mom left the tea kettle there, and then it got knocked over this child. Now, this mom is going to live with that resentment and guilt that she'll never be able to get rid of. So up in our camp model, we have a family break-off where we have psychiatrists and different counselors come in so we can start to work on the psyche and the psychology of processing some of these guilty things and working on the siblings and giving them the tools that they need to kind of grow and evolve as well in their healing. So kind of full circle with the camp stuff. It really is our plan here in this fall and leading into the next year is really a year-long kind of healing like pyramid. So it's just kind of around and around of healing of families, children, and stuff. So that's one way we did. I should say early on, how we really started here, Keith, was we would fill up fire trucks at Christmas and bring them down to the burn unit. We'd essentially pull up in front of the hospital, lights and sirens, and we'd just go running in there with all these gifts. It started with one fire truck, and then this year we just finished our 11th year Christmas blessing. We had 4 fire trucks.
Wow.
So it's really our Christmas blessing, Camp Red now. And from after Camp Red was kind of realize every dream, that's what Camp Red stands for, is we went back to the docs at the burn unit, the hospital. We said, hey, what more could we do for you? And they just said, one of our burn docs had a personal experience as a teenager. He had a bacterial meningitis when he's 14 and he almost died. He ended up in a burn unit. So he had 40% of his body needed to be grafted because all the skin was falling off and everything else. And he almost
Not
died.
because of a burn, but because of something else.
Yeah, it was an infection. Started flesh-eating bacteria that started eating his body up.
Okay.
So he was in there, and in that time, our doc said he had nowhere to go as for his family to stay. His mom was washing her hair in the sink in the hospital room. Well, 20 years later, that need is still there. So when we went and asked the hospital, what more can we do for you? The doc said, we need housing. We need some place for our families to stay while they're here, while their children, their family members are here. They need a place to go. So we started really small scale, Keith. We got hotels, right? We started with hotels, partnered with hotels. Then that outgrew. And we're like, gosh, we got to get something more sustainable. So at this point, we went and got our good friends at Krause Anderson downtown had just built a new building down there called HQ. It's 816 Portland. It's a 15-story building, and we started small. We got 3 apartments from them. We subleased them, and we started small, 3, and they were always booked out. We didn't have enough vacancy. Then 3 went to 5. We had 5 apartments. Then 5 went to 7, and then we were like, we got to do something more here. What more can we do? So at this point, we knew we wanted to build our own transitional healing center downtown Minneapolis. So what we did is nobody had really done that in our geography, in our area. There's a Ronald McDonald model. We went, talked, and had many discussions with them, but we kind of scoured the rest of the country and outside the country, and we went up to Vancouver. And they did something similar in scale in Vancouver, Canada. So we went up there back in 17. Our board chair, Chris Dunker, and myself hopped on a plane and went up there and met with the BC Burn Fund is what they're called. And we went and met with them and learned all their learnings and how they did a building up there with smaller in scale. But we learned everything that they did, from their schematics to their blueprints to their fundraising, how long it took them. Essentially, we got back on the plane and we just moved. And we hit the ground running. And from 2017, flash forward to where we're at today. I mean, we have brought our own healing center to fruition.
So what's that look like, your healing center? I mean, describe it.
Yeah. So how it physically, looks, it's a 10-story building. We purchased 1 floor, the 2nd floor, which will be skyway connected to our hospital for our families. But we have 14,000 square feet, and we were able to purchase it from one of our good friends named George Sherman, Sherman Associates. He was really, really passionate about what we were doing, because when he was younger, he had a personal story with a burn experience too. So it was on his heart when we kind of knocked on his door. George Sherman, the developer, said, I'll sell you some space here. So we purchased the 14,000 square feet. And it's basically what it looks like in the interior. Then from outside to the interior is what we wanted to do is make it feel like a firehouse.
Cool.
So because I had my passion for being in the fire service.
Right.
So ironically or not ironically, is the oldest fire station in downtown Minneapolis was being torn down just this summer, and we were able to get at Station 1. It was off 3rd Street in Portland. They actually used to have horse-drawn carriages there.
Wow.
So the apparatus floor was starting to sink in, all these things. So anyway, we were able to get a pole, the brick, the fire alarms, the bells,
cool.
and we utilized those artifacts into our space.
Okay, we're going to continue
that's
this
awesome.
conversation after the break. This is Our Healthy Homes,
Fascinating.
ourhealthyhomes.com, because I want to hear more about that construction project. And then I'd also like to, maybe if we can get it next segment, we got, 2 more left? Just one more coming in?
Yes.
I want to hear about you talk so freely about, oh, then we just did this.
Yeah, right.
There's a huge organization involved now that's putting all this stuff together. So I just want to hear about that and the building of that organization as well. This is Our Healthy Homes. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Mesmerized is the word that comes to my mind with Jake LaFerrier here talking about firefightersforhealing.org. Firefightersforhealing.org.
Before we get started, so people can go to that and they can donate, they can
volunteer.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on there. They can sign up to volunteer for sure. We have a lot of events. We have a golf event in August. We have a big gala, and then a lot of opportunities down at the Healing Center too, just coming down there to clean and do some turnovers. And so they can find all that information on the website, yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, so let's just finish up with the construction. So you got this firehouse number 1 that you were able to
how awesome is that?
Take some of the artifacts out and some of that incorporated them into your healing center. The healing center is what, apartments or?
Yeah, so Keith, there's 12 apartments there, and they're not just apartments. They're market rate. They're really, really nice high-end living apartments. We wanted our families to feel the love when they walk in there, like they're being loved. So yeah, so there's 12 of that. We have a common area in there for our families to collaborate and come together when that time is right in their journey. We have a big firehouse table that was made by Fire Station 11.
Cool.
It's really cool, firehouse table where families can go. We got a common area with like a fireplace and an outdoor patio with like fire doors that open up.
Cool.
It's all exclusive to our families, and then we have flex rooms in there where other nonprofits can come in there and use this space for free to help them further their missions.
Okay.
Oh wow.
And we have our board meeting room that we finally, after all these years of 12 and a half years of not having a boardroom, we have one. We're having our first board meeting tonight, actually at our healing center. So
that's exciting.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And then we have some office space and stuff for our organization there as well. So
I have a question.
Right.
Yeah,
Is your dad still alive?
he is.
And he's got to be just so proud of you.
I think he isn't proud of me. He doesn't really. He knows from a distance, like kind of what it's about. But I know he's proud, but it's kind of like not his forte.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of gets it like through my mom, a lot of different stuff.
Got it.
Let's talk about, you mentioned you got your boardroom.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the board, and I want to hear just about the formation of the organization, because it starts out with you.
Right.
And doing one thing, and then maybe a co-founder or someone to help that come alongside, and then how all these activities suddenly come up. What I'm thinking is this is a huge undertaking.
It's a job.
Yeah, I mean, Keith, it is an undertaking, and what I learned a long time ago is if I knew all what I know now, I would have never done any of it.
I've
said that 100 times.
Is your partner involved? The one that got burned that day, or did he?
So he was
okay?
involved early on, but he needed for me, this has been a part of my healing.
Yeah, sure.
For him, he needed to kind of check out.
Okay.
For him, it wasn't so easy for us to be together because we were in that room, and every time he saw me, I'm a constant reminder of that day for him.
Yeah.
So he had to kind of step away.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
But kind of tracking it back to, it started, you got to have 3 officers as you incorporate. And you don't really know much. You're at that point, it's like, all right, okay. And you got to, at some time you orchestrate a board, have annual, then it's like 4 meetings a year. And then, so it really was kind of piecemealing this thing together for a lot of the infancy of it all. Didn't know what we know. We kind of figured out as we went. It really wasn't until that in 2014 where we won that national award. And just so everybody understands here, I'm not conveying these sentiments out of a boasting position at all.
No, absolutely not.
I want everybody to know, we're not. But at that point, it forced our business model into having more big picture, kind of vision and infrastructure. So at 2014, we started bringing in a real board of directors, and then from that, it's just been evolving every year. We have oversight committees. We have, just a whole camp staff that focuses on that. We got oversight people that focus just on bigger picture stuff. And then, it's just a lot of moving parts, always,
right.
and not to bore people down, but it really does take a village to do any of this kind of work.
Absolutely. So. And so your boards then, when you're seeking board members, tell me about what the expectation is of a board member, and how do they contribute?
Yeah, it's kind of changed, Keith, throughout the years. In the beginning, we were a working board. They call it a working board. It could be a fundraising board or a governance board, right? So in the beginning, before you really had any audacious goals and stuff, or you needed a big capital for, just be a bunch of doers.
Yeah.
Get a bunch of doers together,
Yeah.
right? We went to beer halls,
Right.
and we just have these things. Yeah, we just go muscle this out. And for up to about this point, it's just been a working board. We just got a lot of doers, and we now are growing in size because they have more networks. But now we're kind of transitioning into having more of a fundraising board. So we're trying to tap into bigger networks of people, C-suite folks, different people that have different means to help us raise bigger capital now for a lot of the overhead that we have. So our expectations of board members are, first of all, you can make a vast majority of the meetings throughout the year. You're doing your best as representative out advocating for us, in the public side and stuff. Some kind of give or get, contribution that's meaningful. Those kind of things are really what's expected. And I just will say this, out of this whole journey, one of the biggest things for me, which has been so instrumental and so beautiful, is the people that I've been on this journey, the board members, the team. What I figured out, it's like the fire service, you have this brotherhood. But on the foundation, the philanthropy space, you don't operate with ego at all. It's all about outward focus, about mission, and the purity of these relationships. With this amount of work, you grow like family. And a lot of these folks have been founding board members with me since the earlier days. So we are like family, and I'm just so blessed to be around so many amazing talents and skill sets, because none of it would be done by one person, by many. And it really is the passion. So when we have a gala, we've been blessed to have, sell this thing out. When one thing that really is pronounced at that gala is the energy on the floor. And that's 10% of the people that are passionate about serving, right? And they get out there and it's like nuclear power, my mentor told me. So yeah, our board I'm blessed to have them, and they're amazing, and they get us into a position where we can do the amazing things we can do.
So what is if you sit back, you're meeting at a board meeting, annual meeting or whatever it is, and you say, okay, this is what our vision is for the next 5 years, because some of these projects now are large projects. And so you've got to be very forward looking to be able to lay the groundwork for that project. What are some of the things that you're like looking at in the future, and how long would it take to bring those things online?
Yeah, great question. I mean, so first of all, we being that we're such a doer board at one time, and we were all about helping people, and we didn't really think anything else. It was kind of like we didn't have any infrastructure at all. We just were giving all of our money back to the cause. So it was kind of the cart before the horse effect. So now we've created this building downtown Minneapolis, and here's the complexity of it. My developer walked through the other day, just unbeknownst, he wanted to see it. And he says, Jake, you went from being a single guy to having 3 kids and a dog, in terms of the complexity of running a building like this.
Right.
So get back to your question. So I guess the big thing is infrastructure. We are now trying to put more infrastructure in there for sustainability long term, not only to get it paid off, but we're working towards having an endowment. So this endowment then will feed this space to carry on long after we're out. So it's really a legacy of healing. That'll continue on. So yeah, we're trying to, that's the forward thinking and the bigger picture vision now, is to put the infrastructure in there, figuring out cash revenue streams outside of having COVID events being shut down, non-solicited income streams, figuring out how to monetize different things, have different events that can help us not only drive monetary gain to help us, fulfill these dreams, but broaden the mission as well, and it becomes to the larger audiences to help out too.
Do you see this spreading to other major cities, Chicago or New York or Pittsburgh, whatever, and having a similar presence in those communities?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. When we had we've been approached already like that, and our whole thought was, let's perfect this here and do this right here. Then we can talk about maybe utilizing the template, the framework.
But the doers would say, heck yes, let's go do it.
Well, I mean, yeah, they would, but I mean, at some point,
my thing is how do you find the doers?
It's hard.
I mean, that's the hardest part, is finding the doers. Because we're doers, but it's just wow, people aren't doers.
Well, here's the thing I learned over a long time ago. First of all, grace is huge in philanthropy, because you're going to be let down every single day on this stuff, right? And people do the best they can do. They're volunteering their time. So you got to be graceful and be all right with people letting you down all the time. But what really is by and large the same is the percentage. It never changes throughout the years,
Oh.
no matter what you do in terms of the doers, right? So you're going to have 15% at best really move the needle, right, in the board. And then the rest, you're going to have, let's say, 55% are going to be, they're going to do what you want them to do and stuff, but the other are just kind of along for the ride, right? So that is never going to change no matter what you do in terms of tactics. You're going to try to, I'm going to do a little bit. It just works the same. I think the biggest thing for me as we grow and evolve is just a giver can't give what he doesn't have. So it's maybe making sure that we replenish, anybody in the space replenishes. So no matter what happens, the biggest focus that you're there for at the end of the day is to serve somebody that needs it more than you.
A giver can't give what he doesn't have. What a wonderful thought.
It's really what it is. That's the litany at the end of the day. The silver lining is like we can get in the weeds quickly on this stuff. And when you start to think about things like big picture billings and all this, if you get too caught up in it, you're going to miss the mission.
Right.
The bigger picture is just, you know what? I look at this in one thing. I got an opportunity to live, and the big guy upstairs was the one that made that possible. At the end of the day, he's entrusted us with a bunch of resources to be good stewards of those resources. And really the math, how that adds up here is just go give that out to people in need, and it'll keep growing. That's the model.
That is the model. This is Our Healthy
Wow.
Homes. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate it so
Yeah,
much.
thanks for having me on.
What an exciting story and wonderful show.
Thanks for having me on.
Jake LaFerrier, ladies and gentlemen, firefightersforhealing.org, firefightersforhealing.org. Thanks so much.
But when he calls me sugar, I love that man with all my might. Sugar in the morning, sugar in the afternoon. Sugar after dinner, sugar in every room. He says I'm sweet as I can be. When he calls me that name, it does things to me. I tell him, honey, you can call me sugar.